But you know, it's been an amazing run for me in the Florida Senate. In 2012, I ran for the Florida Senate. I warn everybody, because most everybody in this room is probably on multiple boards. The good news is you can get off all those boards if you run for office and win. If you put your name on a ballot and nobody runs against you, you have won, which is what happened to me the first time in the Senate. And so anyways, except for Farm Bureau, if you're on the Farm Bureau board, I don't see any members, they will not let you off. Everybody else will let you off and it'll be just fine. You know, with agriculture, and I'll mention several things and then obviously questions, but when you think about agriculture statewide, today in the state of Florida, 2.5 million people went to work in agriculture. Over $200 billion a year economic output. And when you think of it in those terms, it's the second leading driver of the economy of the state of Florida. Agriculture still is. During the pandemic, it was the #1 leading driver of the economy. During a recession, it's the #1 leading driver of the economy. And generally that would be great, except for, you know, putting it in economic terms, not always the best thing to do. Everyone in this room needs a farmer 3 times a day. And so it's awesome for the economic engine, it's awesome for the economic output, but we need farmers 3 times a day. So at the Department of Agriculture, we have worked very hard, not only then, but in the Florida Senate, worked very hard at making sure we keep removing hurdles out of the way of our farming community. A couple of things I'll mention that, you know, just lately when I think about agriculture, I think about our kids and the youth that are going into agriculture. We've always had a robust FFA program, Future Farmers of America program in our school system. Some folks have said, well, we should mandate an hour at middle school or an hour in high school towards agriculture that would be being taught. And we have resisted that, and we have not done that at a state level. When I was in school 40 years ago, that's hard to believe, but 45 years ago, it was robust in East Pasco County, the FFA programs and the 4-H programs. So 3 years ago, our FFA kids, we had 30,000 of them statewide. That put us in the middle of the pack as states. There's 50 states. We were probably in the low 20s, 22nd or 3rd, most FFA kids in the country. 3 years ago, we did a grant program that said that if you're going to sign up for FFA, we will pay that tuition for you to sign up, because a lot of families wanted to participate but couldn't afford to sign up. Today, in just 3 years, we went from 30,000 to over 65,000 kids in FFA and 4-H. So that was step one. So in this year's Farm Bill, we made it permanent, right? It was a 3-year experiment to see if we were going to get our value for the taxpayer dollar. We did, and it's very robust. We're now #4 in the country. I believe we'll be #1 in about another 3 or 4 years now that we've made that program permanent. Problem 2 that we had with our youth in agriculture is there was school boards around the state, and most of them, not going to single out any of them, but most of them did not want to give excused absences for FFA events or 4-H events. 2 years ago in our Farm Bill, we made it mandatory that if a child is participating in a sanctioned 4-H or FFA event, the event is excused from school systems. That was a big hurdle. And you'd have thought that would be enough. Hurdle number 3 was that then the schools did not want to build facilities on them to help agriculture participate on the school system. They would tell us, well, we're not zoned for that, you know, we're in the city. And so in this year's Ag Bill, we said that if you're an agriculture facility, you can build any type of agriculture facility you want to help support 4-H and FFA kids. Now, because of the influx of all of these kids in the 4-H and FFA, the fair associations need to get ready. They all are going to need to be twice as big for plants, steers, pigs, and all the projects that we bring, right? And so we're going to get creative on that. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, because hopefully within a few years we'll have 100,000 children participating in FFA, learning about agriculture, where their food comes from. It's something we've talked about a long time. It's something we've wanted to do. This is essentially a private solution. This is parents wanting to sign their kids up and children wanting to be involved in these programs, not a government mandate. How about that? When you think about your Department of Agriculture, we have 4,000 employees, 21 different divisions. I'm going to talk about a few of those divisions. One of them, the Florida Forest Service. So 2.5 years ago, one fun fact, as we like fun facts, each year in the United States of America, there are 10 million acres of prescribed fire. We do that to prevent larger wildfires and to restore our forests. The state of Florida alone does 2.5 million acres of that prescribed fire. So, we are very serious about protecting our population. We're very serious about restoring our forests, and we're very serious about managing that asset here in the state of Florida. So the Florida Forest Service 2.5 years ago had one helicopter that was state-owned. They had 3 or 4, depending on how you counted them, of old Huey era Vietnam era helicopters that, of course, never ran. And we couldn't even get parts for a lot of them. Today, you have 10 helicopters in our fleet for the state of Florida. Each one of them can pick up 300 gallons of water at a time in a bladder bag and go directly to a fire and help put it out. When you see sometimes a helicopter puts a fire out now without anyone else showing up. But that's the technology that we're moving to make sure that we are protecting people's properties and people's lives. When you think about our assets in the state, hospital systems, postal services, stores, things that critical infrastructure, nursing homes, our Florida Forest Service goes around a lot of these areas that are heavily wooded and cuts a big path between them and the forest to give us a very, very nice fire break in case we have a major fire in the area. So that hopefully we don't have to do major evacuations. That's something we now have the equipment to do. I had to get used to the lingo. When I say bush hog, I mean we pull that behind a tractor and it mows grass most of the time, or hay or something. When you say bush hog in terms of forestry, it means you're driving and you're taking down up to 1 foot in diameter pine trees in about a 12-foot swath all at one time. We have several of those now. That's really made our firefighters' jobs much easier, our rangers, our maintenance. The dozers that we have in the Florida Forest Service, 3 years ago, the average age was 19 years old. So you can only imagine what the maintenance was like. If you're in the middle of a fire on a dozer and you get caught on a root or something, you have a plow behind you, the new dozers has a button you can push and break away and come out. The old dozers did not have that technology. So you were getting out of your dozer and trying to evacuate on foot. Today we have, the average age is 14 years old. We're hoping, and we've bought 90 dozers, I think, in the last 2.5 years. I hope to have that number below 10 in the next 12 months, 12 years of average life. We've ramped up our resources from fighting fires. Our whole goal there, we've seen the tragedies that have happened out west in Canada and California and Denver and all, and around Colorado. That's what we're trying to prevent here. Not only are we restoring our forest lands, but we're trying to prevent large, massive loss of life and property in this state. The largest fire we fought, if you go back to the Homestead race, the NASCAR race, whichever weekend that was, about 6 months ago, there was about a 30,000 acre fire in the Everglades. And our job, you can't get into the Everglades, right? It's swamp. And so our job is to push it into the Everglades so it'll go out. And that's what you do with a fire. You surround it and you kill it because you starve it of the resources it needs to burn. And we, of course, within a mile or two of that fire, there was a nuclear power facility. There was a Homestead tract, and there was tens of thousands of people that live there. And we were able to push that fire into the Everglades, and within a few weeks it went out. But our helicopters in that, for instance, did thousands of missions of dumping water on those fires. And if you haven't seen it, I love this video we did. So our helicopter pilots train with a lot of county firefighters. We assist in a lot of county fires. They assist us, we assist them. We work with every county in the state. Our folks are good enough. If you were to have a fire get close to a dozer as they're plowing and putting their lines in, we can actually go in and drop water right on top of that dozer to give them a path to get out of that fire. And unfortunately, through the decades, we have lost several firefighters in the state. We're always thinking about their safety. And when you see those control burns and you don't like it because there's smoke and there's ash, that's who we're protecting. And so we're very proud of that. Ag law, we have a very robust agriculture law in this state. A lot of it you would encounter at the northern borders as you come into the state. We have 23 interdiction stations. In the last couple of years, we have found over 400 stolen semi-trailers at those interdiction stations. We have found several murderers at those interdiction stations. We have really ramped up. Colonel Adams has done an amazing job retraining and retooling those facilities. Within a year from now, we will have x-ray equipment. You've seen your luggage go through a TSA bag checking station. You see everything in there. We've got the technology to be able to do that to semis and semi-trailers. That will be installed on some of them in the next 12 months, plus we'll have some portable units. We're building a new station at a major highway that comes into Florida that a lot of folks that want to go around our stations go to. It's on 231. So we are locking down our borders to make sure we know what's coming into the state of Florida. The federal government's in charge of the ports. Once they leave the ports, it becomes our problem. That northern border is the state of Florida and the ag law. In addition to that, we've had several fuel theft busts, large rings throughout the state, working with local law enforcement. We had a major skimming bust that was really international. They were flying these skimmers in today into Memphis. They were being delivered from Memphis to Spring Hill, and then when we busted this up, there was 50 people involved. A major ring throughout the southeast in Texas. That was just a couple months ago. Fire alarms and breakers. We had a criminal ring in the state of Florida that was going into Home Depots and stealing them by the garbage can fulls. Home Depot worked very well with us. We did a major announcement a few weeks ago. We busted that ring. 7 people are clearly probably not going to get out of jail for a long time. They were transporting those to Houston, Texas, and selling them to general contractors in Houston, obviously at a much reduced price. And so, or as organized as part of that, it's an ongoing investigation. Those are the kind of things that ag law does that you would never think of, that you don't see ag law engaged in on a daily basis. And the better job we do at our interdiction stations, the better job we do of fuel thefts, retail thefts, any of those types of events. We had Smokey Bear, everybody knows who Smokey Bear is, made a bust a few months ago. There was a guy stealing Smokey Bear signs out of our forests, and they're about this big, and he was selling them for like $1,900 on Facebook in a marketplace. And Smokey caught him in the forest, so unfortunately for this guy. And so when we went and looked at his locker of signs, he had many hundreds of signs, DOT signs, private business signs that he was collecting to sell. That's a good example of using all of the resources that we have, including Smokey Bear. When you think about Pasco County, and there's been so much growth, and especially in East Pasco County, there's a couple of things that I believe is going to be really good economically for Pasco County in the long run. You're seeing 98 get 4-laned from Lakeland to Dade City. That'll be finished sometime next year. You see Highway 50 getting 4-laned from Ridge Manor to Claremont. That'll be done in the next 3 or 4 years. And then it's going to get 4-lane between them, and Dade City is experiencing some really bad issues right now as that project goes on. It's a nightmare to try to get around that city or through that city. And but nonetheless, there will be 4 lanes connecting 98 and 50. I was in the leadership Pasco class of 2002. Since then, I've been going on the tour every year on the East Pasco tour side of this, talking about East Pasco County. We talk about the airport here in Zephyr Hills. The runways are longer now, so planes, hopefully bigger planes can land, which means more economic development of jobs in the area, jobs that are going to pay real money, right? That's been a big project that we've talked about. The armory that's going to be built there, that was $25 million. When I was Senate President, we put that in. Danny Burgess, local senator and local Zephyr Hills, he was born and raised here, really pushed for that, and we got that done. That should be going in. And there's a lot of businesses going to be built in and around the airport. That's what that is. It's an economic engine. They should put a tower there, and there'll be more. Look at what's happening in Brooksville, which was also part of my, I've been talking to them about this for 20 years. But one day we're going to do it. In Brooksville, they've already done that. It's a major growth when you see that. The kind of growth you want, jobs, industrial jobs. So we're looking at that. And so when this road infrastructure gets done, if you couple it with the fact that there's a rail line that runs right down beside that 4-lane road, there is a major opportunity for industrial expansion east of Dade City and Zephyr Hills. It's going on a little bit now. It's going to tenfold. It will do more than that, actually, because I know what's coming. But at some point, you will have thousands of jobs in manufacturing type jobs that will be serviced from this side of the county to go along with all those houses and all those other areas we're building. We do not want to be the bedroom community to Hillsborough County, right? We want to have our jobs that are here in the county. And so we're looking forward to those projects getting done. When you think about the south end of Pasco County, you think of the gypsum stack. CF had been there for many, many years. There is enough rare earths in that stack there to supply our national security issues for several years probably in that stack. Florida State University, we did a pilot project and gave them the resources to study these things about 6 years ago. And they've made major advancements in being able to separate out the rare earths and uranium. And then, of course, what's left is you can use it for road beds and foundations and things. That is going to be a major success story in the state of Florida over the coming years and certainly over the coming decades, just because of all the rare earths and everything that are in there. I think that's important. And when you think about agriculture, we've got several programs at the department that we work to make sure that agriculture stays prominent in the state of Florida. And we start off with the notion of the wildlife corridor. If you Google a map of the wildlife corridor, you will see a beautiful map, and I've got a rendering of it at my office that I was given when, as Senate President. It was one of my top priorities to get the wildlife corridor established in state law. The reason you establish it in state law is so that you can then protect it. Local communities knows it's there. They can work with their zoning and their growth and do things that would not interfere with that wildlife corridor. The way I define the wildlife corridor, and you can look at both of these pictures, Google a map of the state of Florida at nighttime, you'll see all the beautiful lights in this state. You'll see a big giant hole between us and Orlando, that's the Green Swamp. But everywhere it's dark on that map is the wildlife corridor. It's where animals traverse the state, it's where the aquifer is recharged, and it's where we grow your food. It's 18 million acres. We cannot do without that 18 million acres. If our grandchildren's grandchildren are going to have a quality of life that is similar to ours, we have to have the vast majority of that property preserved. Then you only have to debate, how do you do that? At the Department of Agriculture, we have a program called Rural and Family Lands Program. We have preserved over 150,000 acres in the last 2 years in that program. And what we do is we go in and buy development rights from farmers. It's a willing seller program, so they have to sign up. If you know any farmers who wants to be a part of it, you sign up in December this year. About the middle of December, the program will open, and there'll be a lot of advertisement on this, and it'll close at the end of January. Then we rank those projects, and then we go to the legislature to get money to be able to buy those projects. So when you think about this process, in the last 3 years, as Senate President, I put $300 million into the program. And in the last 3 sessions, we've received another $450 million. So I believe we'll close another 100,000 acres in the next 6, 7, 8 months because we have the money to do it. And we are spending your money as fast as they will give it to us because we want to preserve as much of it as we can. And so if you buy development rights instead of fee simple property, it's about half. So your taxpayer dollar preserves twice as much land from buying development rights than it would if you bought the land outright. Number 2, it stays on the local tax rolls. Families own this property, farmers own this property. We pay our fair share of the local taxes that are collected here in Pasco County. If I buy the land as a state, it comes off the tax roll. Number 3, and probably the biggest part of this tale is that if you use best management practice, you have to use, if we buy your development rights, you have to use best management practices to take care of your land. You have to do those things as a landowner. If I buy your land as a county or as a state, I then have to take care of your land because I bought it. And you can hear people say, well, but we can lease it or something. Yeah, hogwash. We do lease a lot of land in this state, but the reality is letting private landowners own that land and keep it in working agriculture is the most path to most prosperity, not only for the farming community, but for the state of Florida because it's so intertwined in what we're trying to accomplish. So I think looking forward, we're certainly looking to continue to work with the legislature to receive those dollars to buy those development rights. There are 3 major projects in Pasco County. One of them was part of the Rural and Family Lands Program 4G. There's going to be almost 2,000 acres there preserved. Kirkland Ranch was a different one. That was not part of that, but we got an appropriation separate to preserve that 1,000 acres in Wesley Chapel. And then there's going to be one that's about 2,000 acres here just east of town. It's probably going to get announced in the coming weeks, so east of Dade City. So when you think about what we're doing and what we're able to preserve, and then the growth that's coming to Pasco County, and think about this, there are going to be 350,000 net people move to the state of Florida this year. And they all want the same things we all want. They want to have good neighborhoods, good schools. We got the best in the country. They want the best environment. They want to be able to run their business, and they want to raise their families the way they see fit. That's what Florida does. We're ranked number 1 in all of those things. So when you think about it, I think we're in a reasonably good place. Again, it's been an honor to serve, and now as your Commissioner of Agriculture, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.